You are listening to the Enormocast.
If there's one thing the Italians understand about this world, it's that if something ain't baroque, don't fix it. And that's why Sportiva has faithfully kept its tried and true venerable classics in the line. The Mira, the Solution, and the Testarossa still outperform the latest flash-in-the-pan shoes out there. And they're also still built in a European monastery by silent septuagenarian craftsmen who may or may not be lawfully entitled to 6 smoke breaks a day. So when it comes to shoe performance, what's it going to be, the latest or the greatest? Personally, I'll go with the greatest every time. So check out both the latest and the greatest at Sportiva.com or your favorite local shop. Sportiva is a proud sponsor of the Enormocast.
Are you stuck in the partner zone, where that person you climb with is blithely unaware of your electric longing that's telegraphing through that stiff gym rope? Does she think of you as just another dude she schools in the bouldering cave? Does he tell his friends you're just like one of the guys? Well, break out of the partner zone and let that person know that your rock is in a hard place with a special gift from PeterWGilroy.com. Because if you thought making sure her chalk bag was always full, or buying him a set of cams for his half birthday would bring out the passion, you're wrong. Do it the right way and go to PeterWGilroy.com for rock-inspired jewelry and accessories that say, to me, you're more than just a solid belay, baby. And of course, remember to enter Enormo at checkout for a discount.
Listen, where are you playing in town? Are you playing here?
We're doing the Enormo Dome, whatever it is. It's terrific.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
big
big place, that side of town. That's a big
nice
place. You sold it out.
2006. We really should.
Look, you better get up there before he panics. Those pens are loose. You're very good. I have really enjoyed playing with you. We'll make it. I don't think so. But we shall continue with style. Bad weather. No, later, anytime for climbing.
Today's show is brought to you by Black Diamond Equipment, with support from Maxim Ropes.
And the fine folks at La Sportiva. And don't forget our charter sponsor, Bonfire Coffee. Go to bonfirecoffee.com and enter Enormo at checkout for a discount on great coffee and to support the Enormocast.
And now back to the show.
Hello and welcome to the Enormocast. This is your host, Chris Kalous. It is July 11th, 2018, about 11:30 here in Carbondale, Colorado, and this is episode 154 of the Enormocast. Enormocast, did I say Enormocast? And this is a conversation with Buddy Nielsen. Who is Buddy Nielsen? Well, a few of you hardcore and punk fans might have just perked up a little bit, but otherwise I think the climbing world doesn't know who Buddy Nielsen is. Buddy Nielsen fronts a band called Senses Fail, sort of a hardcore screamo type band that formed in early 2000s and has 7 albums to its credit, a couple EPs, countless tours. I'm sure an endless amount of shows, live shows, as those bands usually hammer that kind of thing, especially in the beginning of their careers. But we killed 2 birds with 1 stone because every once in a while I get these requests for an Everyman episode, and I've never really figured out how to exactly do that. But when it comes to climbing, Buddy's an everyman. He talks a lot in this episode about climbing in Joshua Tree, 5.4s, 5.6s, 5.7s, 5.8s, and that's the kind of climber he is. Out there, recreational, getting it done, but just as stoked on it as anybody else, and that's how he ended up on the show. It was kind of a different path. His publicist, or Senses Fail's publicist, got in touch with me, and I got sort of an email that I generally, the type of email that I ignore, actually, from publicists outside of the climbing world, because usually whoever they want to talk to me about isn't actually a climber. You know, I get a lot of 7 Summit stuff, and as far as I'm concerned, and I think the fan base of the Enormocast is concerned, if you're an able-bodied adult, then we don't really care that you climb the 7 summits, unless you did it, I don't know, without pants. that might be kind of interesting. But you know, I got these emails from Becky, who's the person that was talking to me about Buddy and telling me that he was indeed a rock climber, and I kind of sort of ignored them, but for some reason it seemed personal enough that I responded, and pretty soon Becky had me on the hook. Often I sort of shut everybody down when I mention that I do them face-to-face. That becomes a big problem because, of course, it's a lot of effort on their part. But that didn't stop her, or Buddy for that matter. And pretty soon we had a date organized to meet Buddy down in Denver when they were playing in Denver because they're on tour. I think they're on tour still, or they just finished being on the Warped Tour. But yeah, in March I went down and sat backstage while the roadies and the rest of the band were setting up the venue. And we sat in a little dark room and talked about climbing, mostly, which I was kind of surprised. I actually wanted to grill him about being a rock star, but he insisted on talking about climbing, which was pretty cool. And again, I don't always know if these sort of celebrity-type climbers, although I think if Buddy's listening, he'd laugh if I said he was some major celebrity. But you know, I'm a little skeptical. Actually, I'm really skeptical when sort of celebrities promote themselves as rock climbers because, you know, it takes a lifetime, or it takes a lot of time and a lot of dedication to get into the sport and to do it for the right reasons. And a lot of times it seems it's just kind of a PR move for some folks to be in climbing and get some pictures and, you know, maybe make a little film or something to make themselves seem cooler than they actually are. But again, going back to Buddy, once you guys get done with this interview, you're going to realize that this guy's legit. Climbing means something to him, and he's doing it for the right reasons. What are the right reasons? Well, he'll talk a little bit about that. So yeah, Buddy Nielsen, little off-piste interview, another one for the Enormocast, but I think this one turned out to be a lot of fun. And I'm going to drop a bunch of music in there that comes from their current album, If There Is Light, It Will Find You, which of course is available all over the place on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you want to listen to your music or buy your music. And then you can go back into the back catalog if you're not aware of this band and you like what you hear. So I've got a few bits and pieces on the show, but this is not, you know, guys playing banjos around a campfire. So when those tunes kick in during this episode, you know, try to not swerve off the road. And before we get to that, just really quick, I want to give a shout out to the International Climbers Festival in Lander, which started today, and I am not there. And decided to skip it this year for various logistical reasons mostly. And I hope everybody's having a good time up there. And Elise and all the folks who organize that thing, I'm sure are in the thick of it. But good luck up there. Have a great time. And I will be back next year. We're looking for another festival to go to this year. Maybe later on in the summer or the fall. Hell, the Homo Climbtastic's coming up. Maybe I'll make it to that. A nice hot, sweaty summer climbing trip to the new. Okay, folks, get ready for this one. A conversation with Senses Fail frontman, climber, songwriter, husband, father, whole bunch of other stuff, Buddy Nielsen. In the past, the likelihood of me climbing with a full-on restrictive rain layer was about the same as me taking up yoga to improve my climbing. And let's just say, my shakas remain woefully disjointed. Instead, I usually just toss in a scant little thing that looks waterproofish, might be slightly water-resistant, but in a downpour becomes a clingy death cocoon that will suck the life out of you faster than watching a 10-year-old pad sniffer send your project after wolfing down a corn dog and a value pack of Skittles. But Black Diamond has the antidote for the stiff and crinkly rain layer, their new Stretch Rainwear. Stretchy, breathable, and waterproof. How do they do that? For all I know, it's coated in the tears of dejected sport climbers. The fully featured Stormline shell and the zippier Fine Line both are made for climbing with gusseted pits, helmet-ready hoods, and they pack into a carabiner-ready pocket to clip to your harness and forget about until that first cold drop slaps your forehead. Check out the entire line of Stretch Rainwear at blackdiamondequipment.com, or better yet, make sure it fits by trying it on at your favorite local shop. This is a really interesting opportunity for me, and I appreciate you having me down here. We're in Denver. What's the name of the venue?
It's called the Summit Music Hall.
Summit Music Hall. So this is way off piste for the Enormocast, which is why I took the opportunity. I thought, wow, let's do something completely different. And,
I appreciate it.
So I'm super stoked. And I have this big, broad, giant question that I ask people a lot. What kind of climber are you?
Yeah.
But I think I want to. My first question to you, or our opener here, because it is a climbing podcast, and we can talk about climbing, but. You have so many facets to your life that I'm actually really interested in. Maybe we won't go there that much, but I guess where does climbing fit into your life is more of my question. You've got a young daughter. You've got this very interesting, odd job, which is that you tour the country playing music. For me, you're nothing like anyone I've talked to in terms of climbing. So where does climbing fit into what your life is like? Has it changed? Has it, where did it start? Let's just go kind of broad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty recent to climbing. Mm-hmm. Almost 2.5 years in. Okay. But it's one of those things I got addicted to super quick. I have a pretty addictive personality. I've dealt with some issues as far as just like every classic musician story, kind of substance abuse, and I've dealt with a lot of anxiety in my life. And climbing was something that helped me harness my anxiety in a very strange way because it matched my anxiety. I have, generally a decently high level of anxiety, and it comes and goes in waves. But climbing was something that is inherently anxiety driving. So here I am sort of living a life that I'm already operating at this kind of level, this sort of anxious level. And when I would climb, I just feel normal. And it was the weirdest thing. I was like, how is it that I just feel in some ways at peace? Because sometimes when you have anxiety and you can't pinpoint why, and you're sort of at the grocery store and you're like, why am I freaking out? Right. When I'm climbing and I have anxiety, I'm like, oh, this makes perfect sense. I am, 10 feet above my last piece, and I don't even know if that piece is good, or I'm in Joshua Tree and just in general, just don't feel any of this is a 5-4 climb. What the hell is going on? Right. So I was able to match this on a very it's honestly a very spiritual thing for me, and I don't mean to get woo woo, but
hey, this is Enormocast.
Yeah.
We got time to get woo-woo.
It matched a level of need. I meditate a lot. I got very, very into Buddhism. I've been doing that for years. There's a level of concentration you can reach in meditation and in being it happens when I'm on stage, but it happens when I'm climbing too. Mm-hmm. There is this single-minded focus where all is right in the world, and you're just alone in this sort of perfect place. Right. And that's what I really like about climbing is that feeling.
How did you get introduced to it? So, you said 3 years ago. How old are you?
I'm 34.
Okay.
So I climbed late.
Yeah, it's pretty late, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what was it look like that you, who handed you this thing that changed your life?
My wife was like, we should go climbing. You should go bouldering. Let's go to the climbing gym. I'm like, yeah, whatever. What am I going to go? I don't want to do that. What is that? Bouldering.
Was this in LA?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there's a climbing gym there, and for my birthday, she was like, well, let's go climbing. And I did it. And the mechanics of it. And like I said, the mechanics of your body being afraid of dying. When you're somebody who suffers from anxiety, like I just kind of said, is you're kind of always feeling like you're just going to explode or die or just spontaneously combust. So when you climb and you're like, oh, this is okay that I feel like this. You almost have, and it happened immediately. I was just the mechanics of it and the way that it helped me sort of deal with, I would call it PTSD, which I've learned a lot more sense from. And that's, it was just immediate. I was like, I love this. I'm in, I'm done. This is I like the sound of the clipping of bolts. And I immediately was like, I want the things to put in the rock. I want to do the
Oh, right.
I was like weird to be immediately like, oh yeah, cool. This is cool, but I want to trad climb. Okay. Like, when are we going outside?
Right.
Like, was immediate.
Huh.
It was strange. It was the exact opposite of, I think, most people's journey, which is, I'm going to stay in the gym and get good at, building up the grades. Like, I was just like, all right, cool. Like, let's go to Stony Point. Like, let's go, which is,
Yeah. I used to guide there years and years ago.
Yeah.
Like beginner class.
Yeah. And that was,
places.
I went out there and took a class and was like, all right, let's go to Malibu Creek. Let's go to Joshua Tree.
What's funny about that is I used to think when I would teach classes there, I'd think to myself, like, if any of these people keep climbing after climbing here, and again, it's crowded with climbers, but it's also, it's like there's two, like, highways, like, crossing.
There's glass and graffiti.
I mean, it's like, it's famous because, like, Royal Robbins climbed there, John Long. I mean...
Then there's that famous off with Maggie's Farm, or I forget what it's called, but there's it just spray painted, it says Jew Dick. And you're just like, and it's like this climb that, like, I don't know if Backer climbed it, but they would, solo it. And it's like, it's like 11C, and it's like really like a challenging, like, pretty iconic thing. And then at the bottom it just says Jew Dick. And you're just
I don't even
like,
know what kind of derogatory.
I don't know what it is.
But yeah, I mean, what I was going to say
there's
is
bees
that, like,
everywhere.
Yeah,
there's
the
like
bees.
Africanized wasps everywhere.
So I was like, if anybody comes to this class, we do this day here, and they keep climbing, they want to keep climbing, I'm like, we filtered out the person who, like, is stoked on climbing for climbing, because this is not like awesome.
And that was me.
And if you take one more step to Joshua Tree to Tucky's, you're going to be like, holy shit, this is even better than I thought. Like, if I thought it was good there, then shit, this is amazing. You know what I'm saying? So, So you ended up outside. So let's, you are a trad climber. You like the widgets.
I love the gear.
Yeah.
I like looking at the gear. I like organizing the gear.
Yeah.
What I also like about climbing for my anxiety is that I'm a control freak. Mm-hmm. A lot of people who kind of deal with anxiety like to be in control. And I don't want to say in climbing you're in control, because obviously you're not. I mean, you're not in control of rock fall. I mean, there's a lot of factors that you're not in control of. But you also are very in control, and that's why I gravitated towards trad climbing. Was like, sport climbing kind of spooks me out. Mm-hmm. I mean, to some extent. Like, I'm a little afraid. I don't really like to be told this is where the next spot is. Trad climbing, I'm able to go, you know what, I'm feeling a little weird. I mean, in some places in Joshua Tree, like, you're going to have to run it out, and you're just not going to, I mean, obviously that's not always the case, but if you want to sew something up, it gave me this feeling of really being in control, and, like, not having that in, like, normal everyday life, but being able to have it in, like, this sort of, like, sport that was filling this void for me. Really did something for me. Like,
yeah, I mean, the sort of objective dangers in cragging, they're there, and we don't want to totally dismiss them. But, in Joshua, rock fall from above, I mean, you are actually, it's a pretty controlled environment. And, it's not like you're stuck 1,000 feet up when a storm comes in,
Yeah.
So I understand that idea of control, because, people have asked me, like, why don't you should get into kayaking and all these things. And I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
That's when, like, the environment is buffeting you and you're reacting. And I'm like, climbing is so slow. You're so, like, your decision making, you can really, you usually, especially, trad climbing, you have time to make some decisions. The red line doesn't spike so fast. So I totally understand.
I liked that about it.
Yeah,
I
totally.
liked that personal risk assessment is really, like, on you, and I climb with people who don't, obviously soloing shit in Joshua Tree, and so it's like everybody gets to make their own decision, and I think that's cool about climbing, and I like that about it, that everybody has their own sort of, like, style, and way of doing it that does something for their headspace too. Like, there's something freeing to these people about doing that, and so.
So now it's only been 3 years.
It's only been 3 years.
In the meantime, you write and record an album.
Yeah.
You sort of reform the band, or at least you've decided to kind of reconstitute what it does, what it means, is what I've been reading anyway. And you have a kid, which was not easy for your wife in particular, but as her partner, not easy for you then. So again, like...
She also developed MS.
Okay.
And had a miscarriage in there. So
yeah.
It's been a pretty wild...
So here's climbing like appears in your life, and then like it seems like an ocean of kind of... Well, I mean, good things and bad things. You know, you're playing music, you've created an album that you're proud of.
Yeah.
You've got a daughter who came through the storm.
Yeah.
You know, so where does climbing fit? I mean,
I don't know. The first song on the record is called Double Cross.
Okay.
After Double Cross.
Oh, really?
No one will know that unless you're climbing. No one out there knows that.
Right.
But it's also like about refining my passion for like, I'd say life, to be honest. Went hand in hand with my daughter and my wife and climbing and the band as well, like coming back, having a resurgence. But the first song I wrote, I go on climbing trips and I write music.
Okay.
That's like what I do. Like I'll go out to Joshua Tree and stay there for like a week, and I'll climb and write songs. And like half the record was written out in Joshua Tree. All the pictures for the record were shot in Joshua Tree.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, the cover art and everything. There's a big one with our like mascot guy next to a Joshua Tree. So, you know, and Joshua Tree is obviously influential in music. Like U2. I mean, so it's like, well, I don't know. I have this connection to Joshua Tree, and like I have a deep connection there. There's something about it. I don't know. It's like I climb in a lot of places, but for some reason, Joshua Tree is just like super special for me.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and then Caius is from out there, and in Queens of Stone Age.
Queens of Stone Age. Yep.
Those guys were.
They record. You know, a lot of records have been recorded out there. So there's just the vibe, and like I wrote a bunch of the record out there. So that's. I mean, it really climbing fits in my life. It's like I moved to Flagstaff so I could climb more and have a kid, and not have to drive from LA every weekend, you know, 2.5 hours to both ways to get some climbing in, and I could just go in 10 minutes away. But to be honest, I miss Joshua Tree.
Well, sure.
I mean, I miss it comparatively. The crags around Flagstaff are cool.
Like fits into your life on a level beyond the climbing.
Yeah, and I guess I didn't realize that, but the climbing around Flagstaff is cool, but it's... I fucking hate basalt, to be honest.
You're in trouble, man.
I know, I realize that.
There's a bunch of flag climbers that listen.
I'm sorry.
Like, no, what you guys need to do...
I'm weak, man. I'm like a slab dad.
Fine, buddy.
Help me out.
Help him out. Are you connected to the community?
Yeah, I got some friends in there, and
right.
You know, I've been out and around, and I'm just not a vertical climber.
Keep it to yourself then.
There's some great stuff for people that's, you know, I'm not climbing hard, you know.
Well, and you were based in LA before?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's quite a change socially and urban to very not urban.
Yeah.
But maybe, I mean, if you're an outdoor family, then maybe a better place to raise a daughter.
Yeah,
I don't know. If you're thinking that too. So.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, I mean, real estate wise too. Like, I can't afford to buy a house in LA. Right, it's just impossible.
Right. So you know this. You mentioned the word obsession.
I'd say it's it's an obsession.
Obsession. You know, this addictive personality. And again, looking back at the history of the band, it seems to have also been an obsession.
Oh yeah.
You know, that continues on. And so my curiosity, and you've answered this a bunch already, I think, with the crossover between Joshua Tree and writing music out there and everything else. But to me, actually, on paper, if you will, or whatever, you know, the lifestyle of a guy touring, you know, you're in Kansas last night, you drive, you're here, it's like mid-afternoon, you're going to do a show, and you're off to Salt Lake. Is that right?
Yeah, tonight.
Yeah, so... You know, it's not a terribly healthy lifestyle.
No.
I mean, even if you mind your business.
Yeah, even if you're trying.
Which you haven't in the past. I mean, you talked about alcoholism, drug use in the past. So it's a really kind of, I mean, I see it as this dichotomy. You know, when you're out here on the road and when you're hammering it and when you're in the bus and, you know, is that like, does it help your consciousness to know that, you know, I'm eventually going to be back in that other lifestyle? I mean, how do they mix? You know, it seems like you've got really two hats. Do you try to stay in shape on the road? Is that important to you? Those sorts
I mean, I'm big. I do jiu-jitsu. I've been doing jiu-jitsu for like 10 years, which also translates exceptionally well to climbing.
Okay.
Which I don't think a lot of people would realize, but very similar. I mean, I'm always we're always working out. We're staying. I mean, I don't drink. I don't smoke. I live what's called straight edge lifestyle. So.
Out of necessity, it sounds like.
Out of necessity, but I mean, definitely. I'd say so.
Because it sounded like you were prone to...
I am prone to, like, finding something that helps fill whatever void and then holding on to it dearly.
Right.
You know, whatever that is. It could be climbing, it could be, my daughter, whatever. And then, for me, it's just been about finding the healthy things that are, like, the good ways in which we distract ourselves from, I don't want to say distract, because everybody's finding ways to, everybody's dealing with loss and pain, and we're all going to need ways to mediate the realities of life and balance the good and the bad. And we can do it in healthy ways, or we can do it in addictive, dissociative, non-healthy ways. So my journey has been about finding the healthy ways in which to, like, supplement that.
Right.
And that's sort of what I do. I climb, and I do jiu-jitsu, and I make music, and I, get to come out on stage every night and play in front of 1,000 people, and like, but the two lives, I mean, I don't know. There is, now that I've become a father, there's definitely now a tour life and a home life. Versus before, it was really like, I'm coming home to my wife, or my girlfriend, who's, became my wife, and nothing much really changed. But now it's like I am in dad mode, and it is a different level of responsibility and also like needing to be present. So this in some ways is like a vacation. I mean, really, I'm out here like with less responsibility. But I think they work together because when I'm home, I'm 100% home. I take care of her, all day, and my wife works. And, a lot of dads, unfortunately, won't be able to do that because they'd be working 9 to 5 or whatever. And, like, it's a non-traditional lifestyle that ends up working in a way that I think is actually really pretty cool. And, like, I was able to develop a really quick relationship with my daughter as opposed to being someone who was, like, probably working 9 to 5 and really only seeing them for pieces at night and then, on the weekend. So it was cool, but it is, I don't want to say a balance. I mean, we don't tour a ton just because we're at a level where we can't over tour, because luckily the success of the band is so that, like, we would be asking too much of our fans to come out, We'll be back in Denver this year, but it'll be on a support tour or something. So, so there are periods of time where, like, last year I did one tour, so it's like.
And how long are you gone for?
5 weeks.
Okay. Yeah, so
it's really not. There's this idea that it's this, you're gone, but they came out to New York. It's very, I mean.
Well, was there a period in the band's lifetime that when you were guys were just like...
I mean, we went hard for years. I mean, when you're developing and you're younger and you're kind of peaking and you're not completely solidified. Like, we could go away for 5 years and I think come back and still have a solid fan base. Like, we're not worried about that. But there's that point when you're young, you're like, if we go away, people are going to forget about us, So you go hard, and that just drains the shit out of you. It's like someone, like, living on the road climbing, like... At some point, you're just like, do I care about... I mean, some people are like, obviously, like, stories about Honnold is like climbing every day. Doesn't matter. Like, some of these people are obviously, like, so dedicated. But then, I mean, the majority of people that do kind of like the dirtbag stuff, I mean, they're as much in it for the climbing as they are for the lifestyle of, like, hanging out and just sort of, like, not being a part of society. And, like, I always think that there's a real crossover. I'm surprised there aren't more musicians that climb.
Right.
Because it's a very similar lifestyle. Like, people like you listen, like, I think I've seen that. Brad Gobright living in, like, this small, shitty little car. It's the same thing as the support bands we have on this tour. Luckily, we're luckily enough to travel a little nicer now. But, for a majority of it, we're living in a van with 9 people, staying at Motel 6, 1 room, all sharing a bed, sleeping on the floor.
Right.
Eating garbage. But you love it. But you also love it because you're 22.
Right. Well, I mean, we've talked about the dirtbag recently on the show, and it's always this, like, this icon thing that people sort of discuss and its value in the community. But I think that, I mean, the reason maybe there isn't a crossover or whatever, is because, you get it out. And you can only do one or the other. I mean,
that's true. You don't want to be touring and then. I have a friend though, man. My one friend plays in this other band, and he's perpetually just on the road.
Okay.
I mean, he's perpetually on the road. He's either touring or he's living in Joshua Tree or some other spot and just climbing.
Well, that works. I mean, I don't know. I just kind of wonder.
There's not a lot of us, though.
Right.
There's not a lot of climbers that are like professional musicians.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure why, because I think they lend themselves very similar. It's sort of like counterculture. I
don't know. Maybe you just have to. It's just too much energy to do both. I mean, it's kind of an odd combination, and and what you get out of climbing and how you approach climbing, and your goals in climbing fit with this lifestyle really well. If you were to become so obsessed, like all of a sudden I want to climb hard and I want to. I just can't imagine the two working that way.
No, I don't. I mean, I don't. Yeah, like I don't spend enough time climbing to get to a point, or I'm too. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm too old, just because I see people climbing hard that are in their 60s. Like, I don't think that's so as much of a barrier as like the time commitment.
Yeah, and again, it just goes down to like, we talk on the show here and again and about climbing hard and performance, but it really is only one aspect of the sport.
It is.
And most people aren't. I mean, obviously, you go out, you want to perform well because again, if you're looking for this state of whatever it is, I want to say bliss, but equilibrium for you, where you said the anxiety, you have to be pushing yourself a little bit.
You can't be just taking your time. You can't be like, this is easy. You're not going to get there if it's too easy.
So it's this weird mix, I think. But, I know that, like, within the media of climbing, like, performance
it really is.
But in most people's climbing lives, it's just one little bit.
Yeah, which is interesting because I think some aspects of people focus on like more of the spiritual, like why do you climb? I mean, like why do you climb? I mean, are most people really climbing because they want to climb hard, or are they most people climbing for more of the reasons I'm climbing? And I'd probably lean more people are doing it more for like my reasons than like, I mean, how many people you have to put in so much time to climb hard, No,
it's way more people are in it for the other thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just like any sport. I think the top end still gets the focus, but yeah,
I mean, because this is really, do people really want to like, the Rock and Ice Man put a picture of me on like a 5'4" in Joshua Tree wearing a helmet with bringing up too much fucking gear, like stoked.
Yeah.
Like, is that really going to sell magazines?
I don't know.
Like,
I mean,
you know what I mean? Like, it's the same thing with most people who are musicians are playing in their basement, or like if they go out, they play in like local bars. No one's putting a picture of that guy on the magazine.
Exactly. Yeah, I guess that's a good.
It's a similar thing. They're going to put the rock star playing in the arena on the magazine because that's what the unattainable goal is.
We were kind of talking for just a moment before we were recording, and talking a little bit about, in your 3 years, you've had kind of a rough couple incidences that maybe would have stopped other people from continuing to do this, and have also kind of made you step back on the risk assessment thing with climbing. But can you talk a little bit about that being something that was happening to you kind of early on in your sort of climbing.
Yeah, I mean, a year in, I was at Joshua Tree with a friend, and we were in this area called Conan's Corridor, which has got a couple really good climbs. It's got like it's one gem called 5-8. We were going to climb that. He was going to lead it. And then these other guys who happened to be from the gym that I went to, there's a group. We weren't together, but we just kind of were all randomly there. They were climbing this other one called Spider-Man. It's like I don't know if it's a 10A or 10B, but... And they were climbing, and we were about to get on, and then, like, we just hear someone just fucking scream, and then just guy falls. And, like, if you've ever been in that area or in some of the Joshua Tree areas, like, not everything's flat ground. Something's tiered, and, like, there's these, like, holes. So he fell about 30 feet upside down, fell into a hole, and we just, ran over and did everything we could. And I had a spot, luckily, so I hit the spot immediately, and I ended up running. It's because, some of these, there's no cell service there, so... I ran out to the road, hitchhiked to my car, ran out, and as soon as I got to, like, the gate, 30 minutes later, there was someone coming in because of the spot, and I rode back, and dude ended up getting airlifted, and it was just, that totally changed my headspace of, like, what am I doing? And, like, my wife was pregnant at the time, so she gets a spot update. Because she's on my
Oh, sure, right.
And she can't talk to me.
Right.
She can't get in touch with me because I'm in the park dealing with this. So she doesn't hear from me until 5 hours later. My pregnant wife thinks I'm in the accident.
Right.
And, the kid ended up, he's alive, but I don't know to what extent he is functional.
Right.
He had a helmet on and everything, just fell right on his head. He had a compound fracture of his wrist. But, that was a stressful thing to be a part of. There's people who climb for 20 years who never see anything like that.
Right.
And I went out and climbed the next week to just try to, like, get it out. Mm-hmm. We went and climbed right on, which I don't know if you've ever done that climb. It's like, it's a pretty quirky Joshua Tree climb, but I was scared shitless, It's like the first pitch has got one bolt, and it's 5-4 slab or whatever, but it's still just like, you're like, what are the situations I'm putting myself in, and what is smart? Why am I climbing? What is the ego part of this? And what do I really want to get out of climbing,
Right, all in this moment.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, it's always a selfish pursuit. Like,
there's no other way you can.
And and I'm thinking about the things you told me a few minutes ago. It helps me with my anxiety. It puts me in this great space. But then you think about, like, okay, here's your wife thinks you've been in an accident. You have to figure out, and you're about to have a kid. And I just, from listening, I have a little too. And you just have to figure out, well, is there this ripple effect going out that's not worth what I'm getting out of it?
Yeah.
Or am I being selfish?
Yeah.
Are those the kind of things?
Oh, yeah. Definitely. And, like, I definitely took a break. We went on tour, and I took definitely a break from climbing and, just needed to, like, assess, like, what kind of climbing I want to do, where I want to be climbing, like what my risk assessment is. Like, I've always been super safe. Like, I'm one of those people that took the time. Like, I was like, I'm gonna spend money to learn how to do this right. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not gonna be one of those people that's just guessing. Mm-hmm. That's just my personality, and that's just like the act of control. I like information. Right. I like information. I like systems. Mm-hmm. I love systems, and climbing is one big giant system. So I gained a lot of information, and this kid was just doing things in a way that I wouldn't do them. And it wasn't an instance of, like, an act of God or something happened. It was like he made a decision, and it didn't work out for him because of the, what he climbed up, 30 feet put in one piece because it was easy climbing for him because he was going to climb the 510B. In the beginning is, I don't know, like 5 easy, whatever, and he felt comfortable and dropped his nuts and was like, I'm going to come down, put a piece in under a flake, and weighted the piece, and because of, different factors, the piece blew, and just, just like...
Sure.
the rationale, I think the rationale with everyone, and it's really interesting to see, people really wanted me to share the story on Mountain Project. And I didn't want to share the story because I wanted the family to like have some distance, and I didn't want to be like, oh, here's the story, because everybody, I think, and I've had this happen, when I hear an accident happens, I go, what happened, so I can know if it's something that is like I could control.
Right.
And like, I wonder if there's that aspect of like, so you can then go, well, that wouldn't happen to me because I would never do that.
Sure.
And that's what I told myself is, well, I would never put a .8, under a flake and Joshua tree on this kind of rock and weight it, and and that's just something you tell yourself because you want to keep climbing.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, it's just you have to, with anything, but there is a element of like, it's not going to happen to me.
Yes. Oh yeah. 100%.
Always. Because otherwise you're not going to leave the house.
I mean, inherently, I have a lot of friends who, this drive tonight I have a couple friends' bands. There's a guy, they got in an accident, he's dead. I mean, I have another friend's band, they were in a horrible bus accident. They're all lost a leg, the driver died, they're still dealing with injuries from it. Like, life is inherently dangerous. Sure. So it's this balance between like getting in a van and driving around the country is dangerous, and climbing is dangerous, and so many things going to the mall is dangerous now. My wife called me the other day and was like, there was a shooting at the mall she was at, and it's like, we live in an inherently dangerous world. So climbing is just a choice of like, do we want to enter into this version of the dangerous world?
Right.
And at what level are we at that we can like make the right decisions in order to like limit our risk?
Well, totally. And I play this game too. Again, I have a kid. We're both dealing with this idea of like, well, where is our limit? I just, on the last show, I think we, the guest Micah and I compared our line, like her line, where she said, well, I'm really safe because I don't go this far with this and this. And it was actually like, it's because she ice climbs.
Oh God!
Like I drew a line before ice climbing.
I'm not going ice climbing.
And both of us believe ourselves to be, the safer climber, or whatever. But that's kind of emotional and intellectual. That it can be, that you're a little bit joking with stuff, but it's also not entirely true because, like you just said, you went at it systematically to learn how to climb. Yeah, which is not what most people do. Most of them, it is, in going back and listening to the Enormocast, you can hear a series of follies that people survive to become rock climbers. You didn't do that necessarily. But you said you went on tour, you came back. Did you make any changes, or were you, when you came back to climbing after a little bit, or do you think, or was
it's really hard for me to push myself.
Right.
It's really hard for me to push myself. Like, it's really hard to like, I'm climbing like 5'8" in Joshua Tree, which egotistically, that's fine. I'm fine with this. But it's like, I want to like push myself. Like, I want to climb harder. And it's like, there's this barrier of just like, of fear of like, in order to climb harder, you're going to need to pretty much, take some falls or like put yourself in positions where you're running it out, or you're like above your limit trying to put in gear, which is,
Sure. It's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I battle with is like, where's my thing, and like, I know that's always part of climbing, but it's definitely something that like, if I hadn't seen this accident, and then if another guy that I climbed with hadn't died in Tahquitz over the summer from rockfall, no one ever really even knows the whole story, and that guy has 2 kids. You're sort of like, I'm good. I'm just going to climb this 5'6", and that's going to be enough for me. And that's kind of where I'm at. Just
going back to this idea of everybody getting different things out of climbing, it's like, But I want to climb more. I want to climb in more places. Well, that's true. You know what I mean? Like, I want to. I want to have more access. Sure. I want to. Like in my mind, I want to climb. Iconic routes. Sure. Like, I want to do the stuff most climbers want to do. I mean, that's the practicality of it, and I think it's not what we've gone to is that it's like climbing harder in and of itself isn't the thing. It's just that if you get, you can open up more terrain if you're capable of. Yeah. You don't have to go and, there's this awesome giant sweet thing, and I'm climbing over here on this part of it.
Yeah, and
we all dream of climbing on the big thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes 5'10", sometimes it takes 5'11", to get onto the big thing. Yeah. Yeah, so I get it.
And then that's, and that's where I guess I'm at, and like I haven't found tons of people to climb with either. That's the other thing. Is like it's actually really hard to find climbing partners. I've found, like, if you're not within like a community, really, like if you're just like kind of dipping in and out of it, or just like climbing at like the level I'm climbing at, like it's kind of hard to find like good, competent, safe people you enjoy climbing with. 'Cause
absolutely.
Most of those people are pretty much climbing way harder than me. I'll climb with them sometimes, but it's not like, you know what I mean? So it's like...
Well, you also, knowing this because it's just happened to me, again, is you've, as a dad, and with those needs and everything else, you've definitely got a pretty specific circumstances to your climbing. Yeah. You're not very spontaneous. No. Yeah, all those sorts of things, and I'm feeling it now, too. Yeah. And luckily, our positions are different in that I've been climbing long enough that a lot of my climbing partners have evolved with me. Correct. In these same positions, but... you're not like just some 20-something dude that's like, I can go climbing anytime you guys want. Let's do it, Yeah.
And I was doing that for a while, and then I got into the situations where I'm like climbing with people, and I'm like, they don't even know how to like put their belay device on. You're just like, I can't do that anymore. Like I now, because I have a kid, like before I was like, well, I just won't fall. Right. You know what I mean? You're climbing with like... Because climbing Joshua Tree, you get a lot of people touristy coming there, and a lot of people just don't know that style of climbing, and it's really hard for them. So I'd be meeting people their first time climbing Joshua Tree and sort of like chauffeuring them around, and like it's became sort of like a probably not the safest to be climbing with these kind of people that are just like. I climb at the, in Kentucky, and I'm climbing this here, and I'm like, well, this is a little different out here. Like, you're not going to be able to just jump on the 5'10", like if you want, but you get over there with them, and they're flailing, and they're like, this is 5'10". You're like, yeah, it's 5'10". And you have that
whole gym to outdoors thing. Yeah, it's. You've been climbing 3 years, like, and you also. Pulled up routes and moved locations. Yeah. So it's going to take a little patience, I think, until you lock in with the right couple people or whatever. I always take it for granted that these people that I climb with, but I realize
no, it's hard, man.
Yeah, no, and I've fostered these relationships over a decade.
It is hard to find because half climbing's hanging out with people you like. Mm-hmm. I'm not really necessarily always hanging out with people I like. Mm-hmm. Not that I dislike them, but I don't even know them. So it's like, now I've come to that point, like 3 years in, where I've gotten a lot of the like, let's just go climbing and fucking climb. I don't care who I'm climbing with. Right. Now I'm kind of more like, well, I want to go like, if I'm going to be away from my family, like I want to be with people that like I'm having a good time with. And that's been like pretty much kind of in some ways slowing my climbing down.
Oh, no, 100%.
Just because I'm like not so apt to like just meet someone in the campground in Joshua Tree and just say, hey.
Dude, I would never do that. No. At this point in my climbing career. Never.
Well, yeah.
No.
And like,
so
that's
I totally get what
kind
you're
of been
saying.
hampering.
And I also don't want people out there thinking like, oh yeah, he's like, I climbed with him a couple weeks ago. Like, I thought he liked me. No, I'm just kidding. But
yeah, same thing with me.
It's just a matter of style and what you want out of your climbing.
Yeah, like I want to hang out with people like, that I really like, have a good time with. And I have a couple of those people. But it's about developing more of that, and
So can I ask you some stuff? We ended up actually talking about climbing even more than I thought, so this is awesome. But for a climbing podcast, but let me ask you a little bit about your music, and as far as anybody listening to this, and hopefully you'll give me permission to tag a song on here or some parts and stuff. What would be like I'm not going to at all do the heinous thing where I ask you, what kind of music is it? But what would be like an entry song album? Where would you want people to start with this?
I think the new one's good because it's a mix of kind of everything we've ever done.
Okay. In what way?
We're kind of on a line between like being very melodic and then very like heavy, very sort of in some ways metal, hardcore, and we've skated that line over time, and then we've gone to one side or the other. Like sometimes we'll put out records in the beginning that were very poppy and melodic and catchy, and then we put out records that are like severely heavy that you probably wouldn't even be like, is this the same band?
Right.
And the new one kind of skates the line between the both of them, and it's most relevant to
What's it called?
It's called If There Is Light, It Will Find You.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the inspiration on the title?
It's from a Charles Bukowski poem. And it's sort of like dealing with mortality and, there's this obvious reference to like afterlife. If there is light, it'll find you. But it's more of like, no matter what point you're at in your life and no matter what situation you're in, there's always the ability to sort of like know that everything's going to be okay. Even in the times that it seems desperately all is gone.
Right.
I firmly believe that there is, this ability to move forward and not only heal wounds and then go on to continue to live a really full life.
Supposed to raise you when I'm so afraid of all that I can pass down. It won't be just my name. I've tried so hard to imagine our place. Tears streaming down from my face. A father meant nothing to me, but I hope I mean something to you. Grab my hand, hold it tight, let the water take us tonight. Grab my hand, hold it tight, let the water take us tonight.
And that's one thing that I love about climbing is, I said this to someone and they got really bummed, but I've loved this about climbing is that life is absurd. Life in general is absurd. It's a really absurd thing that we're all here existing on this earth in these perfect conditions, spinning around in nothingness. Climbing is absurd. It's a ridiculous, like if you actually sit down and explain it to people, they're like, why would you do that?
No.
So climbing is...
I make my living sort of doing that.
Climbing is the perfect
Right.
antidote to life, in a way, to bring meaning into something that's meaningless in some way. They're both absurd. And so if life is absurd, then why not do something absurd? And that's always how I've lived my life. I don't want to live conventionally because I know the kind of the absurdity and the fragility of life. So I want to live it to an extent that is very full. And then a girl was like, that's really dark and depressing. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I thought it was uplifting. I thought bringing meaning to climbing is uplifting. We are climbing. And she was like, that's really fucked up. And I was like, is it? I don't know. Maybe it is.
And you lost another climbing
Yeah, and
partner.
there's another climbing partner. I'm talking about philosophical ideas about belaying you.
She's like, can we leave the mortality thing out of this while I'm climbing? Do you mind?
Sorry about that. But
No,
so...
I get it. I mean, I understand. This podcast is... Oftentimes we tread into how fucking stupid it all is. And yet, because I've dedicated my life to climbing, and this project is about, at the same time, how meaningful it is. So if it wasn't meaningful, no one would be listening.
But what's interesting is from a DI, like punk and this kind of music has very strong ethics, which is really interesting and mirrors climbing, where it's like, if you're not doing it the right way, the old school way, the way it's supposed to be done, you're a fraud.
Right.
And it's the same thing. It's like the
awesome.
same thing. Like if you're a fake person and you're doing it for the fame, and like some of these climbers, like they don't even climb outside.
Right.
Are they climbers? I don't know. Like that's not for me to judge, but it is a discussion.
Right.
It's the same discussion in the music scene. Like some of these people that like don't even write their own music but are out there singing songs. Are you a musician?
Right.
Or what are you? You know, like cool, you're really good at climbing indoors and now you might be able to go to the Olympics and win a gold medal, but like have you ever like been scared shitless on like slab and Joshua Tree? Like what is a climber and like who decides that, and like just the ridiculousness of the ethics too, and like to the length people will go to defend it.
Right.
Like that whole story about the compressor route and all that stuff. It's just like similar to like people's career in like the music business of being like, you're a fraud, you're fake, like you didn't write any of your songs, like you're not even singing live. This is garbage. I've always held those beliefs really strong. I don't hold them very much in climbing because it's like a newer thing for me, but I grew up believing in this system of music and integrity, and I think a lot of the people in climbing that grew up climbing and care about that stuff, specifically like trad climbers and alpinists a lot of the time, have this like ridiculous vice grip on the ethics.
So, yeah,
but I think it's really cool. Like I really like it. I really like that people still chop people's bolts in Joshua Tree.
Right.
I really like that when I take new people there, I'm like, yeah, we got to walk off. And they're like, we're going to walk off? I'm like, yeah, we're going to walk down this fucking thing. It's stupid and it's scary and there should be a rap bowl.
Right.
But there isn't. And like, I don't know. There's something really endearing that I see between climbing and music is like, you can't fake it. Mm-hmm. You know? And the people that try, it's very obvious. And I don't know, there's just this level of meaning you find in your pursuit of the meaningless.
Well, and the funny thing about it too is that, I mean, the meaninglessness or I guess it's more of a paradox because you have this like, and I too, you listen to the show, I have my ethics and I have what I believe to be the right way.
Yeah.
But then as an adult, because I'm 47, I can step back and I can be that person that's like, who the fuck cares how everybody else is doing it? And, music's the same way. Like, well, so they, recorded to a backing track. Like, they're paying the bills.
Like, I don't want to be on a major label.
Right.
Like you explain that to someone. Like, if someone was to explain to a non-climber,
because I've got a contract here for you. Like, oh no, wait a minute, I'll do it. No.
Yeah, if you were to explain like some of the ethics in climbing or some of the ethics of like, well, I don't want to be on a major label because of this. They'd be like, "What are you, stupid? You need to make money. What's wrong with you?" And like climbing, be like, "Why do you care if there's a bolt or not? Like, what do you get? What?
Right, it's safer if there's a bolt.
Why would you not want a bolt? What's wrong with you guys?"
Yeah, no, it is. It is. That's really cool because I wrote that word down in my sort of notes about authenticity. Because I do see it, especially in this scene. The type of music you guys are doing, and going back to punk, and and even like. You were a little sheepish when you dropped those genre words. I heard a little, or hardcore, a little bit metal. Nobody wants to, but nobody wants to be.
We got to be careful aligning yourself because if we called ourselves a hardcore band, there's 1,000 different people out there that'll be like, "You're not a fucking hardcore band. What are you talking about?"
Well,
it's like. You're not a trad climber. You boulder. You're a boulderer, and like you do some trad climbing. You're not a trad climber. You're a boulderer.
Yes.
Like, stay over there. Stay in your lane.
Exactly.
Go fucking climb ridiculously hard.
You have a keyboard player for Christ's sake.
yeah, exactly. And it's the same stupid thing. And then the grading system is very much like, well, this record's better than this one. It's like, well, it's just the whole like absurdity of it. That's like, I think. There's a lot of similarities between the lifestyles and the ethics that I like was also drawn to, enjoying the like lore of the history. Like I really like the history of climbing too. Like I've pretty well read and like know about, the history of climbing. Sure. Just because I like enjoy that aspect as much, if not more, than like sometimes actually climbing.
Well, and not to fully belabor the comparison, but it's like influences within music are very much like influences with climbing of who stood on whose shoulders to create like this or that.
You have this guy like Fred Becky who by all accounts, is probably not someone you'd want to model your life after. I mean, really, right? I mean, same thing with a musician. Like, do you really want to live this forsaken, like, tortured artist lifestyle? Like, this guy had no family, like, perpetually just lived in the dirt, and, like, yeah, he climbed some amazing stuff, but, like, it's like this guy's put on a pedestal, and same thing with a musician that's like, this guy's a total mess, like, he's a complete drug addict, but he's a genius.
Right.
You know? It's a very similar, like, we put people on pedestals that are ultimately completely flawed. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah.
And we see a lot of that, and I think we see a lot of the, like, flaws in people, and if, like, you have flaws, it makes you more real, and you're sort of lifted up, you know? Mm-hmm. And that's a really, you know, and to even, you know, to belabor the point even more is, like, we live vicariously now through social media. Like, I have to post things and do things to keep my stuff up. And I mean, a climber, I mean, I couldn't imagine being a climber. Like, dude, like, what is, you know, someone like Brad Gobright, who just broke the speed record, done all this stuff. Like, he's like, man, what am I going to do now?
Right.
What do I do now?
Where's my next album?
What do I have to do? Like, what do I got to do? I have to go, I literally almost have to go die to now top what I've done. Like, and I don't want to say it's the same in music, but I mean, internally, I'm already like, dude, like, I'm wiped. Like, I wrote this record. I took everything out of my soul and energy to do this. Where is that going to come from next time? Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm 7 records in, so I know it's there. I know it's always going to be there. But I think for, like, a young climber, someone who's like, dude, I broke the speed record on the nose. Like, what else do you want? I mean, because what's his name's probably going to come this summer and break it anyways. You know, he's chomping at the bit to do it, probably. Hans. But you know what I mean? Like, it's very similar. And, like, so that's why I, like, constantly am, like, have a head in climbing, just because it kind of, like, mirrors it in a way, and I can kind of, like, relate and be like, man, that's probably what he's thinking, or maybe I'm wrong. But
but hopefully you can take it easy a little bit and
you hope
part of it.
Because
I mean, you've got this this other lifestyle that, you know, it's got to take it out of you, even if you aren't touring that much anymore. Because you know, I play music. Everybody knows that. You probably know from listening. You know, and even our good little gigs we do, like, you're amped, and and afterwards you're like, whoa, I'm like, and you guys do it on such a level that,
I mean, it takes a lot out of you. We played a big show in New Jersey, 2,000 people there. It was like, and I needed, like, days to sort of just like, and, like, even singer of Metallica, he has a thing, he has to take a bath after every show. To just calm down. Right. Because, dude, you're amped. You get done at, like, midnight, and you're like, well, I got to go to bed. But it's like, you're not going to bed till 4 a.m. because you're just like, I just, you know, rocked out in front of 1,000 people. And, like, you know, you got to, like, find ways to. That's why a lot of people drink. I mean,
bath, for sure. I mean, the drugs and the alcohol, I mean, it's fucked up to say it, but it makes total sense. Because what are you going to do? I mean, you're going to, like, crash so hard after an output like that. I mean, it's been there since the beginning of rock and roll, and there's a reason. It's like it makes sense. And you know, I've wondered about, you know, actually, it's a question I ask a lot of the climbers. I asked Honnold that after El Cap.
Yeah, what do you do? You know, you always say that. What now? How do you?
Right.
And it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Like you build up this thing. You've been building it up. And you finally accomplish it, and then it's done, it's just over. But that's life. I mean, that's the sort of, like, ability to sort of let things come and go that you need to develop as, like, a human being. That you get to develop as, like, as someone who's really successful at something, because you achieve these things, but then you have to realize it's more about the journey. I know, as everyone says this, you know, it's more about the journey than it is the actual act of the thing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, you're on autopilot. I can't really be that present during the show because I'm trying to put on the show. I'm trying to sing. I'm trying to do this. It's like, it's the same thing when, you know, Honnold's fucking soloing El Cap. It's like he's on autopilot. He's got to a point where he knows he doesn't have to think about it. He's just doing it. And it's just like, it's not even about the act anymore. It's just about, you know, to some extent, you're like, thank God that's done. Now I can just relax. Mm-hmm. And there is a little bit of that, you know, like, there's a little bit of that in music. But the consequences of not performing are a lot less, you know, in music. Like, if I go out and blow it on something, it's not the end of the world. But I have blown it. Like, I forgot the lyrics on Conan O'Brien. I was fucked up. That fucked me up for years. Still to this day, it's just like, I just couldn't take the pressure of the situation. It was too much. I was just too much. And I blew it, you know. And like that, I've had to live with, you know, videos of it being there for the rest of time.
Right. Thanks to
you know, and it is what it is, and I've, you know, come to be fine with it. But the consequences of that are not death.
Right.
I mean, in some ways, they're. I mean, I definitely suffered emotionally from that, but I didn't die.
Yeah, but we're talking about, you know, like these experiences, you know, when we keep talking about like Brad and Alex and stuff, those consequences are there. But if you talk about, I mean, in terms of a professional climber, where you were talking about, well, how am I going to write another album? And if you have, you know, quote unquote, a hit song, there's that, well, how am I going to write another one? And I think, you know, the consequences are really similar with pros, sport climber, bowler. Like, you know, I don't think the industry is so cynical and crass that
they give up on
they
people.
Just give up on you. But eventually, you have to create value, and if it's not gonna be out of your performance, you can create it somewhere else, but you're gonna have to be very imaginative.
Yeah.
As to how your value. So I'm sure the pressure in that level, not the if I fall I'm gonna die level, but has got to be. I mean, it's all there. It's
that's
this is
very
the way I'm
similar.
making my career. This is the way I'm making my money.
And then the constant need to like just be putting up photos of what you're doing. Hey, I'm living a cool lifestyle. You know, I don't post pictures. Yeah, I'm really super like having a hard time like with things right now. Like, you don't do that. You don't see climbers doing that. Like, I'm really having a tough time because like I don't want to climb. You know, it's like, you know, sometimes I don't want to play a show, but you got to play a show. Right. It's the same thing with, I'm sure, with professional climbers that are like, I just want to like do, you know, I don't want to do this, but that happens to everyone in every aspect. So.
Well, let me ask you this one last thing. Then. You know, I read about this current album, the way you feel about it, and the tour. You've this little daughter you've got climbing, like looking in comparative to your past.
Yeah.
You know, are you feeling pretty balanced right now? And, you know, as far as life, you know, recreation, let's call it climbing or whatever recreation, you know, career, family, you think you feeling pretty good at the moment?
Yeah, I think I feel really good, you know. I'd like to do some more climbing. I'd like to like go, you know, back and just kind of re-jump into that. But, you know, with the way my life is, I have to kind of like make choices. Sometimes I'm just climbing. I'm not working on music. I'm just like, I was literally just going to Joshua Tree every weekend, you know? Mm-hmm. I don't think I'll be doing that again, but I'd like to find like a little bit more time for that. But I feel really good, you know, professionally and emotionally and with my family, and we're in a really good position, and everything is awesome. And I think a lot, and I think a lot of that, this sounds a little strange. Maybe not strange, but like, I've gained so much confidence from being in situations in climbing where like I felt completely like not sure if I could do it, but just have to persist because you're in the middle of a climb and you're just, I have to do this. That sometimes, you know, when I'm in situations where maybe like I feel like I can't do it, like I'll fall back on that thought, that situation of being like, I'm like freaking out right now, but I don't have another option other than to like keep climbing and go. That has helped my life in a way that I wasn't really, you know, I didn't really expect, you know, to be like in moments of doubt, fall back on like, well, I was able to do this, you know, like I got through this in climbing, like, you know, I was able to mentally be okay and will myself to complete this. When you're sitting there and you're going, I totally doubt what I'm doing, you know, because in a climb, you know, like that happens. I mean, that'll happen. You have to pretty much override that and keep going, or, you know, I mean, other things can happen, but ideally that's the outcome you want and get to the top. And it's a similar thing in life when you're sitting there and I'm like, I don't like know if I can handle my wife having a miscarriage or like having something. Like, it's given me this ability internally to like be okay. That's why I like climbing. That's why I want to climb more, because I want more of that. I can handle this situation.
I used to be afraid to sleep out underneath the stars.
right, folks, that was fun, right? That music will kick you right in the hoo-ha. And then maybe rub your back and tell you it's okay. And then just kick your ass again. I want to thank Buddy for doing that, for taking time out of the tour to sit down. He's a bit of a fan of the show, actually. You know, a lot of time on tour bus is probably podcast land. Also, I want to thank Becky at Big Picture Media that set this thing up, and she persisted through my cynicism and my crustiness. And I'm pleased that we got something nice done, a little bit outside of the normal realm. And finally, I want to thank you guys for putting up with me trying to experiment and do these different things. A couple episodes ago was the El Cap one, which was a little bit different, and now we're a little bit outside the fold with interview with Buddy Nielsen. So I'll keep trying these experiments, and hopefully you guys will keep listening and appreciate at least my dedication to the form. You know, there's starting to be a lot of other climbing podcasts. I used to be out there in the desert all by myself for the most part. You know, the occasional Dirtbag Diaries episode would hit some climbing, but I was really the only guy for quite a while just hammering out the climbing. But I'm still here, still hanging tough, and again, I'm going to go ahead and try to differentiate by taking some chances. And I think this one paid off. Okay, speaking of taking chances, do it. Go out there and take some chances. Have fun. Climbing is definitely about pushing yourself, but remember, there's a line, and make sure you have your system sorted out. You know what's going to happen if you do fall. And of course, check your knot.
Can I raise a practical question at this point? Are we going to do Stonehenge tomorrow?
No, we're not gonna fucking do Stonehenge.
The teachers told me that's where it's at. So I